And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Dr. Marlene Moulton, internal medicine physician who, during her out-of-body experience, discovered that humans are from Sirius and are indeed a technology. Dr. Moulton, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Jeff.
Marlene, let's start on the day that you had your out-of-body experience and go from there.
Okay. So just to back up a little bit before I get to the OBE, I want to just kind of lay my background in terms of psionics. So what led me to having this out-of-body experience was, as a physician, I was having some experiences that kind of gave me pause. So I found myself reading people's minds, if you will, in my day-to-day interaction with patients. To make a long story short, there was a 28-year-old gentleman. I'd never met him before. He came into my office and he's telling me his history. And in doing so, I heard him tell me that his mother had breast cancer. And I also felt the emotion that he was experiencing from the grief and loss that he was still carrying. So I turned around and I said to him, "Yeah, go ahead and tell me about that." And he said, "Tell me about what?" And I said, "Your mother dying from breast cancer." And he said, "How do you know that?" And I said, "You just told me." And he said, "I didn't." And I said, "You did." And so after much back and forth, I had to admit he did not say a word to me. But it was experiences like that that was happening that made me realize something is amiss. Now, when I was much younger, I can recall having experiences where I have dreams, I had premonition, just strong knowing is how I would describe it. And in my early teens, I didn't want that anymore. I walked away from that. So in my 20s, it ramped up. And by the time I get into my 30s and 40s, it was as strong as that, premonition that psionic was ever going to be. But it took that experience with that young man for me to realize something else was going on. I had other experiences with patients where they come in and I said, "Oh my gosh, so tell me about your trip." And the patient said, "What trip?" I'm like, "Your trip to Mexico with your sister." And she said to me, "How would you know that?" I said, "The last time I saw you, you told me you were going on a trip to Mexico." And she said, "I did not. There's no way I would have told you. I saw you in January. I didn't start planning the trip with my sister until May. And it's August, and I just got back from Mexico 2 weeks ago. There's no way you could know." But I knew. I knew. And I remember the exact room I was in with her. I remember her telling me about it. But all this time, I kept thinking that the patients were the ones who was missing something. And I'm thinking, why are they lying? They must have forgotten that they tell me these things. But apparently they did not tell me. And so what ended up happening after the experience with that young man, it gave me pause for me to become introspective, to look at myself. It can't be everybody else, it had to be me. So I started a journey of who am I? It's that proverbial, who am I? What on earth is going on? And I have to say, I am not religious. And um, I don't, I don't go to church. I have no background in any kind of philosophy or anything like that. But I will say that I I don't know if you remember Hurricane Ian in 20 September of 22.
Not
So
really, especially since I
yeah,
don't
so
live
it
in
was a
Florida.
right. So Hurricane Ian was a large Category 5, um, per the government Category 4. For me, it felt like a 6 hurricane that happened in Florida, and during that time, a lot of things happened where we didn't have power, and it just kind of it was probably 2 years after, what do you call this, the pandemic. So people were just coming out of the pandemic, COVID pandemic, and then that hit us. So it was kind of back to back. And during that time, one of the things, so we had already slowed down in terms of socializing, is that I used to do night watch with a large telescope, and I love the star Sirius. For some reason, it was just one of those stars that I love. And so I set this up in my bedroom. My husband and I would kind of just watch the stars at night. So that is how I got to the outer body experience. So I'm trying to set this all up for you. So what happened was, after the pandemic and after the hurricane, when everybody's world kind of changed, I turned to a lot of astrology and science. And I'd not watched or been in a science class for 30 years, I suppose, after, being a doctor for almost 30 years. So a lot of things had changed. And I was discovering a lot about quantum physics and all these, scientific discovery. And I really couldn't get enough and stopped watching those videos and fell deep into the sky. And this is how I was listening to one of Nikola Tesla's video on the number 369. And I thought to myself, I wonder why Nikola Tesla loved the number 369. And I literally felt something say to me, here, write this down. I'll show you. So this turned out to be some type of automatic writing where all or numeric digits written from right to left form these three sets of numbers, 369, and they can be arranged vertically and horizontally in the same repeated set of numbers. So after I wrote that out, I kept looking at it and wondering, what does this mean? After about a week, I discovered that it can be used as a multiplication table for 3, 7. It's very complicated. So I show a couple of people and they're fascinated by it. And I thought to myself, there has to be something else. So I'm an open book. I talk to my patients a lot about everything. So it was one of these patients that told me, "Oh, it sounded like you had a trance and you had a automatic writing." So I've never done anything like that before. So for me, I thought people who were in a trance would be altered, and I didn't feel like I was altered. So that's the first thing. And another patient taught me about numerology, that this must be something with numerology. And I became curious and started to dig a little bit deeper. And as I was doing that, I thought, well, maybe there's some message in it for humanity and I'm missing it. And if there's some message, I don't want to be that loser on earth that just never deliver the message. So I started meditating, and meditation is something that I've always done. So one of these nights I thought, well, I'm just going to focus on Jupiter and maybe I can ask Jupiter what these numbers mean. So that night I felt so deep into the meditation that I lost myself and fell asleep. I was so disappointed. So the next night, I thought, I'm just going to ask Sirius. And whatever you do, Marlene, don't fall asleep tonight. Just don't fall asleep. So it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. I settled into my meditation. It's nothing major or fancy. My husband is asleep beside me on the bed, and I'm just in my regular pose, and I focus. And the next thing I know is I've heard something right here go psh, as if you ripped two Velcro pieces apart. And I realized that I could see, it's almost as if instantly the ceiling of my bedroom disappeared. And I have to say this because when I tell this story, sometimes people will say, oh, I had this DMT experience and whatever. I don't drink alcohol to the level that, I just don't. Um, I don't do drugs. I've never had ayahuasca, DMT, none of that. So this is unaided by drugs or anything of that nature. So I'm laying in the bed and the ceiling disappeared, and I realized I could see, but it was a little dark. And I thought to myself, I know I could see through my eyelids. I know I could see through my eyelids because I thought I was seeing, like, when you close your eyes and you have this internal picture, this memory in your mind's eye. And the next thing I know is that I could feel myself moving in the night sky. And I thought, this is odd. Part of me felt like it was normal, as if you could say the left side of my brain thought, this is what I do. And then the right side of my brain kick in, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm really outside. Why am I outside? And I thought I was dead. And I thought, but why would I be dead? This makes no sense. I didn't have a heart attack. I didn't feel like I had a stroke. I'm a healthy human being. Why am I dead? And I was really annoyed when I thought I died. And then I thought, now all this is happening and I'm twirling through the sky. Like I'm aware that I'm moving. And what started as like a 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the morning night sky start to lighten up. So it feels like it's in a second. And what I'm telling you feels like it was nothing but a second. But in order for me to tell you, make the story flow, I'm gonna tell it to you this way. And I thought, well, if I'm dead, I shouldn't have a body. I don't even know why I thought that. So I thought, well, let me see if I can see my hands. So I put my hands up and I looked at my hand, and it was my hand. I had a hand and I touched it, and I could feel that I could feel myself, and I was still me. The thing I notice is that two things. I sleep naked at night. And so when I put my hand up, I was in a dress, and it was a long sleeve, I know, white dress with little ruffles around the my wrist. And I also noticed that I have a scar on the back of my fourth finger, and I noticed that that was not there at all. So it is my body. It was me, but I'm in a different version of myself. Now, the one thing I will say is at some point, I think I could feel myself going through the atmosphere of the earth. And it sounds like when you pluck a guitar string and it reverberate like boom, that sound, like from a guitar string. And I could hear that. And then it begins to clear up. So the sky began to clear up, and I realize I'm no longer on Earth. And all of this is like going really fast. The next thing you know, I am like in a different atmosphere, and I have 360 vision, and I can see, like, I'm in the sky, and I can see the land below. It was still green, and there's water, And the minute I thought, oh my goodness, where am I realized it's like you get this instant knowing. I realized I'm in Sirius. And I thought, oh my God, I'm in Sirius. Because I'd set my intention that night, that morning in the meditation, to ask for help with these numbers from Sirius. So I knew I was in the star Sirius. And then my brain kicked in and I thought, wait a minute, how can I be in the star Sirius? This is like 3.5 light years away. How did I get here? How did this all happen? It's almost like the same questioning I had when I thought I died. So the when I find myself moving through the sky, I thought, well, I got to get down. And the minute I say that, I begin to descend. So I felt like I was out moving with intention, but mainly floating around and not like going down. And so the minute I thought I need to get down, I begin to descend. And as I descended, I came under a tree, but I was moving really fast. The one thing I know is the trees look lemon yellow colored. And I know, okay, we don't have that kind of tree on earth at all. And my eyes were different because I was about maybe 50 to 80 feet away from this tree as I'm moving away from it. And I could see into the leaves, into the very detailed structure of the leaves, the very veining of and the striation in the leaf. And eventually I descended into Sirius. Now I started going down slowly. And at first, as I'm going down, I could hear um, I could hear a commotion like on the earth. I'm saying earth, on the land beneath me. And and it's coming from my right side. And as I get closer, I realize that they were beings, that they were um, I don't want to call them aliens because at that point, I guess I'm the alien, right? Um, but they were beings that were half human in the upper, and kind of reptilian below. They look very bluish in their skin, like black blue, and it's almost like they expected me. That was the very strange thing. Like they knew I was coming and they were beckoning, they were telling me to come down. And they were telepathic, so no one spoke, there's no language. And I begin to descend. I descended. So all of this is happening. And that's when I realized, oh my goodness, the communication between myself and these beings are the same is the same communication that I've been feeling and sensing with the patients when I thought I was reading their minds. That same communication. So I get down, and when I did, they it's kind of hard to describe because so much happened in a very short time. And I remember talking with them. I didn't ask anything about the numbers, which is really what I went there for, because I was so mesmerized about everything else. And I'm gonna say they offered me to stay. And I thought about my husband that I just left in the bed, like what felt like 2 seconds ago. And I said, no, 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 I can't stay. I want to go back. I want to go back. And one of the beings that was standing to my left said to me, in the most loving voice, well, if they spoke, but with that compassion, that communication, don't be afraid, close your eyes. And at first, I didn't close my eyes because I'm trying to take in everything. I'm like, felt like a kid in a candy store. And, and the bean said again, close your eyes. And I closed my eyes. And the minute I closed my eyes, I felt myself coming, traveling, and I'm aware that I'm moving and I'm coming back into it. Just felt like a second. I felt myself coming back into the atmosphere of the earth. I felt myself coming through the wall of my house. It's a very strange feeling because I knew that was happening. And I felt when my shoulders came through, I felt when my feet came through, I felt myself hovering over my body on the bed like a helicopter trying to match up and land. I felt myself sink into my body. Um, I felt myself, it feels like when you push your hand in soft butter. That's how I felt myself leveling back into the body on the bed. And then I felt my shoulders magnetically snap in, my left shoulder first, my right shoulder. And I heard the sound, I could hear it. And I felt the jerk. And then I opened my eyes. I was back in my room. And that was my very first out of body experience that way. So after that experience, I realized, oh my goodness, the world is truly not what we say it is. That's the first lesson. The second thing is that I am not who I think I am, because how could I have lived for so many years and not know that there's a me inside of the body that I occupy that can disengage, if you will. Um, that was very shocking. And it took quite a few weeks for me to assimilate that. But the most interesting thing is that after that process, I felt like the beings never stopped communicating, right? They were still telling me these information. So I did learn so much. The one thing I will tell you is that I know people talk about near death experience and on your show, and I'm glad that they did that they've done that with you, because that's how I learn a lot of what has happened to me, if you will, or happened for me, is that their experiences are real. They are, in fact, true. And for the very first time, I understood that the human has a soul. I guess I will refer to that as a soul, right? Um, Not being a religious person, if you will, but use the word soul to describe that electromagnetic version of the human self. And so, what I learned from, let me back up before I tell you what I learned from the beings. After that experience for me, I went from asking myself, who am I, to what am I? Because I thought, oh my God, if I am like an alien or one of the beings on Sirius, will God just tell me? Just tell me. I will never tell a soul. Like if I'm here shape-shifting, just tell me. I will never tell a soul. So I went through that process, and by which time a lot of things started to change, in the sense that um, during my meditations, I was also having what I guess in Eastern philosophy would be considered a Kundalini awakening. And I felt myself going through that process with this energy that was like alive and inside. And, I had to put that together to better understand that this was a part of the soul experience. So, what I did was I went back into a meditation, And this time, my intention was to confront God, if you will. And I thought, wait a minute. If I'm an alien, just tell me. I'll never tell a soul. How could I have lived for all this time and not know that the human body that I'm in is not me? How would I not know that? So I went into this meditation doing what's called a jhana meditation, which is a very deep Buddhist meditation where it takes a lot of focus and intention to traverse different depth of the meditation. And so in the meditation, what happened is I go through the same, it's almost like similar to having an out of body experience um, where I could feel myself disengaged. But this time I ended up in the void. So I had no body. So after I got out of body and I became pure energy, I sat in that state for a while of being pure energy. And I heard, so it, how do I put this? I was in that meditation for a very long time. And my intention was to ask God, who am I? And in the meditation, I got no answers for a very long time. And at some point, I heard someone with a beautiful female voice came over me and said, Marlene, Marlene, are you okay? I was so excited, Jeff, that finally in my head, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, finally someone is going to tell me who I am. And the voice said, here it comes. But it was this sense of calm, this sense of peace that I thought when the person said, here it comes, it was to tell me who I am. But that's not what happened. What happened was I I was already in a state of pure energy. And it's almost as if you were standing at the foot of a bed and you flap a sheet out, you know, that wave that it creates, this larger wave than myself, a very large wave came up, overtake my feet. Now, I'm so focused in this meditation that I didn't even realize that all of this was happening. When the wave came up to my mouth disappeared. And I remember thinking, did my mouth, by the time I could say disappear, the energy overtook me and all of me disappear. So I had no body. I had no mind because I'd already came up out of my body and I was an energy self. And in that energy layer, you're in your mind. And so the mind disappeared and I was left as pure awareness in the darkest dark that you could ever imagine. And I guess this is what most of your viewers consider to be the void. It was so beautiful and so peaceful. I can't, it's like a place where you go and in that moment, I understood that I was a part of God, like I was a part of this great awareness. It was me. This whole thing was me. It was so vast. It was so dark, so peaceful, so much love. And I just wanted to sit there forever. And at some point I saw a I remember just understanding that it took me a long time to get there. And I thought, I'm just going to stay here for a little minute and rest. And the next thing I know, I must have just lost um, consciousness, if you will, because I'm aware, I stayed conscious. Something happened, and the next thing you know, I find myself in a lower state, coming back out of the void. So the same stages that I went through to get to the void, I was doing it in reverse. So I came out of being pure awareness back into being my energy self, back into being various more restrictive form of my energy self. And then finally, I was back in my body on the bed. And I thought, oh my God, what was that? I had I came into this meditation trying to understand who I was, only to discover that I was a part of the great awareness, one consciousness. And in that moment, I realized that I'm the same consciousness that looks through the eyes of everyone and all things, that all things was me, all things were conscious and aware down to the very atom. It's almost as if I disintegrated by quantum physics to the very fine basic thing that constitute all things. So I had that experience, and between the outer body experiences and then discovering myself in the void, and that I could, through meditation, march myself either into outer body experience or into the void at will, I realize for sure that the world is not exactly what we were taught it to be. And as a doctor, going to college, being trained, and understanding that the human body is run by the mind and discovering that it's not so was very shocking for me. So, what I discovered was that the human body is basically a vehicle. And yes, we are originally from Sirius. The beings from Sirius came down to Earth. I started life in the water before we migrated in many versions of ourselves onto land, living on land. And I guess the Dogon tribe from Mali probably talk about, they have their own stories. There are many cultures that have told the story in the very same way. Now I realize that, and this is all in hindsight research that I've done after having these experiences, just trying to figure out what happened for me. And I say that because nothing happens to you, things happen for you through which you learn. So over the course of months, as I'm trying to assimilate all these things that had happened, and I'm talking to patients, and I'm talking to family, and talking to friends, and the sad thing for me is that um, culturally, in the Western culture, we don't talk about these things enough. I didn't know anything about Kundalini awakening, that there's this energy that resides in us that it can be ignited and awaken and change the human body. I had no knowledge of this until this happened to me. I did not know that there could be such a thing as a out of body experience that has nothing to do with a near death experience. I knew no such thing. But what I learned from the beings on Sirius is that um, the human body is designed as a vehicle. And much in the same way that you do not, when you get in your car and you drive to work or you drive to the supermarket, you don't become your car because you are in the car. It's the same concept. When we descended into Earth, to Earth school, right? We don't become the body we're in. It really is just a vehicle. And in that same thought process, you utilize the car, you utilize the vehicle and you exit the vehicle at some point in the future. So you're not the body you inhabit. You are a energy form within that body. Now, there are ways that you can decipher how the how to discover yourself, if you will. So, versus your soul. Are you operating from the true you, your true self that's in this vehicle? And what they explained to me is that the human body, the vehicle itself, if you will, if you want to call it an avatar, use the five senses to navigate Earth environment. So your sight, smell, taste, touch, hearing, right? But when you are operating from the true you don't need, well, let me explain 1 second. It uses the five senses to navigate the Earth environment, but all of those happen through contact. So light has to contact your retina for you to interpret what you're seeing. Sound waves have to contact your eardrum for you to interpret what you're hearing. Someone has to touch you, that pressure wave, that sense for you to feel, tasting and smelling, and so on. But when you're operating from your soul, you don't need that. You can still hear, see, taste, smell without the contact from light or sound wave. Plus, you also use intuition. So the human soul has intuition plus the five senses. And in the saying that truly no one dies and that there is no death, and that is for real because we are energy. And I know we've been saying this for many, many years. And before this happened to me, and I see with my own eyes energy beings and light beings and people, energy signature of people that we thought were deceased, I would say to anyone who had said that to me many years ago, are you crazy? But it's true. We're energy and no one dies. There's no such thing as death. And so those were some of the things that I learned. In addition to the fact that as energy, we do traverse different dimension during the courses of our lifetime. And I know people talk about dimensional shifts and timeline, but yes, the earth is truly holographic. When you're out of body, what you see is so different from what you see of the earth in body. Time disappears. Yes, there are multiple different type of beings, and yes, they're here to teach us. They, when they descended into earth to get our population going, if you will, they never left. They've always been here. So those are some of the things that I've learned.
Marlene, thank you for sharing your experiences with us. Would it be accurate to say that you are a Sirian having a human experience?
I would say that I am some energy form having a human experience. I don't necessarily, how would I say this? I think much in the same way we create borders for ourselves, whether it be male or female, whether it be American or Jamaican, those are all limitations that we give ourselves. I think on the other side of the veil, those things don't exist. So I don't want to say I am Sirian versus Lyrian versus Pleiadian. I am just an energy form, which is that form from the one awareness, if you will, having a human experience, meaning the energy that I am is currently occupying a human vehicle, which is a software, literally a software computer car, if you will, avatar, if you will. And that's what makes us human.
I want to get a deeper definition of the word soul. Would you
Yeah.
say that your soul is your conscious awareness?
Your soul is correct, is your conscious awareness. So all of us are, we're all the same thing. And the best way to describe this is by visually, if you walk with me, and just imagine a large wave that's just rolling up out of the ocean, right? So consciousness is that large ocean. And for a moment, let's say I become a wave and I am create this large, very tall, mile high column of water that we call a wave. And if I create it well, you may have even little pieces of that column of water splashing off because it comes up with such force and you feel free and independent of the ocean. But eventually you fall right back into the ocean. So that is what we all are. We are all these versions of wave being created momentarily, but we're just one and the same thing.
What did you see during your experience that confirmed it for you that we are technology? And what do you mean by that as tech?
Well, by tech, I mean it's kind of simply put that a lot of the things that we do, for instance, you use a phone to communicate with someone, that is your technology dumbed down, being sold back to you, if you will. Um, we now understand some of these things that we used to call being gifted, or we telepathic, if you will, or remote viewing, things like that. These are all functional part of this vehicle, this model vehicle of the human body. You think about someone in the course of your day, you pick up the phone and you were going to call them and they call you instead, right? And we pass these things off as coincidence. The problem is that no one has taught us how to dig deep into that. How do you utilize that? And for a lot of children that are still close to that gift, that part of themselves, we quickly beat it out of them, if you will, by sending them to school and giving them these education, which, don't get me wrong, are important. These are things we need to figure out how to have our human experience. But if they were nurtured and taught and encouraged, you certainly would need a phone to communicate. And this is where the different version of the human is going, in terms of when you look at children with autism, right? Or kids that are on the spectrum, if you will. A lot of them communicate with each other without communicating via phone, right? And we ask ourselves, how do you know that? Because they do, and we have multiple research that prove that they do. Um, it is the construct of the human body that I learned in medical school is run on material, right? You can touch the brain, you can touch the heart, and in there, somehow, we are made to believe that the brain is the center of all of our activities, but it is not so. So if you have a heart problem, I can hook up an EKG and see the problem that's happening with the heart. If you have a brain issue, a seizure or something, I can hook up a EEG and look at your cephalic waves, the waves from your brain. If you were to say to someone that you really love them and you're welled up with emotions, that is all real to you, but I cannot tap into that and measure that, but it's very real to you. If you're in pain, I in a medical field, I have to just say to you, what's your pain scale? 1 or 10? Because there's no place yet to measure that, but it is very real to you. I am telling you all this because the human body itself has a energy field, right? And we talk about these things. And it's not just like the heart center creating this large electronic magnetic field. There is a layer of energy that sits around the human body, and that's the mind. So the mind is not located within the flesh brain of the human body, as we were told. And that's the reason we have not yet figured out how to measure your pain and how to measure your love and so on. I think that there are research being done because we now have things like V2K technology. Do you know what V2K is?
I don't.
It's called voice to skull technology, which is a technology that was worked on. It's in one of those CIA research. And I think right now what they do is they say that they use it to keep like birds away from the airport. So it's voice to skull, meaning they can tap into your energy signature, that energy, that soul part of you. Each of us have, like, you would be 99.1, I'm 99.2, somebody else is 99.3. They can dial into your 99.1 and send you a message that even if 99.1, 2, and 3 are in the same room, it's directed at you. You're the only one who would hear it. So it goes straight to your skull, straight to your brain, straight into your energy. And so it is unique things like that that constitute the human, right? There are other things about self regeneration. So, one of the things that I confirm is, Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great, would have been one of the oldest books that was around that talk about as above, so below, as without, so within. The human body is constructed in the same way. The brain is its own entity and its own organ, same as the heart, your kidneys and lungs. They're their own entity. And each of them, we're now discovering in medicine, have their own center of neuron activity, right? They're able to regenerate, right? They're able to repair themselves, but all of them together make you. Your brain would never walk out and say, I am in charge because I sit in the most uppermost part. And your kidneys won't leave and say, well, I give up because without me, you don't make urine and you would be poisoned. They all work together to make Jeff. And it's the same way. Um, on earth, we all of us together, like all the parts together, make the earth work well. Well, it's the same way with the human bodies, as above, so below, as without, so within. And so there's so many things that we don't yet understand about the human body that we are learning and discovering about how it should repair itself, self-regeneration, methylation and demethylation in terms of in terms of repair.
Do you think that we live in a simulated realm?
We do. We absolutely do. And it is all energy and technology. And it's for that reason I can, in a way that I still don't clearly understand, by lowering, I feel like lowering my heart rate, lowering my electromagnetic field, the energy that I am can leave the vehicle that I occupy and explore some other world, some other place. And it depends, and there are different layers of where you end up. So a lot of people talk about the astral layer. And when I started this process, these are all terminology I learned because this was all new to me. So you can be on the astral realm, which is a absolute copy of this world where nothing is private, nothing is secret, and you move in and out. And I'll say this that um yes. To answer your question, absolutely yes. There is a digital version of this earth that we're living in, and nothing is destroyed. So everything that was ever created is still in that version of it. It still exists in that copy of it.
Did you see anything digital out there when you were out of your body?
But I do. As a matter of fact, 2 years ago, when I had my first out of body experience, I actually went to. There's a place in the. It's in the pyramids. It's below the Egyptian pyramid. It's a huge hall, like it's like a whole different world down there. And it's not until February of 2025 that I first read that they had ultrasound discovering that there are places below the pyramid. It's not filled with water as they describe it. There are lecture halls there. I've been there multiple times. I've been into a very magnificent building. I guess people call it the Akashic record. And the first time I walk in, actually, the place is so magnificent, so beautiful. The floor had this mandala um, design in the entry of a mandala design with it's look like it's made of tile, right? And I just remember bending down and touching it. And just imagine if I were, I don't know, 3 feet tall, and this building would be as big as, the largest, tallest building in the world, just massive. And I've also gone to some place in Antarctica where it's like a whole world under the ice. And I've been to just simply things like watching the Northern Lights. So yeah, you can do just about anything and everything. Where I end up when you leave the body for the very first, when you get out, is not always the same. And I find that you can be out with form, or you can be out and be formless. So you're just absolute awareness, and you can take on form, or you can be out with form. And so I think a lot of the experiences that I've heard people talk about are formed experiences. So it's one or the other.
How often are you astral traveling?
Um, if I do it with effort, maybe now I only maybe once a month. For me, it takes effort. Um, and my mind has to be like in meditation, in the right space. There are multiple ways to do it. You can People talk about sleep paralysis, and that's one way that you can disengage. I think it's very scary to some people if you wake up and you can't move. But what that is you can rock the electromagnetic part of yourself free from the body, from the human body at that time. as well as I can do it through meditation with intention. It takes me probably 2 hours if I to be formless, and probably less, maybe an hour and a half to be with form.
Do you think we're supposed to be doing this?
It's as natural as you are. And I think that is why I want to have the conversation, because for me as a physician, it I treat people very differently. I see the human in a very different way. I will tell you that when I started this process and I was having the conversations with family, friends, and patients, because I didn't know where this was going and what this was all about. Why am I able to like read people's mind? Why am I feeling people's feeling? And it was deeper than just being an empath. It's not just, oh my God, I feel, it's not that. It was whatever you're feeling and thinking, I'm in it. And I realized that um, we're not we're not being told the truth. And
Why?
the why really is that it keeps us a slave. We are, I guess a lot of people have a lot of different explanation. My understanding from my experience is we were supposed to be here enjoying the earth. We're the only animal species, we're the only species on earth that pays to live here. Think about that.
We pay
We
to live
work,
here.
yes, we work and we engage with money to
Oh,
enjoy the earth.
I see
You
what you're
understand what
saying.
I'm
I'm
saying?
seeing what you're saying now. I thought you meant paying somebody in the astral realm to be here.
No, no. No one in the astral realm. I mean, the dogs enjoy the dog life, the cat enjoy, the birds are doing the bird life. I don't think that they have a organization of bird society where there's some kind of hierarchy and that they need to give seeds in order to travel, migrate from Mexico to Canada every year, right?
Mm-hmm.
All other species having an experience. And part of the human experience was for us to come into Earth and to forget our greatness, to forget the freedom that we are. So when you say, should we be doing this? Yes, we should be doing this, because if you had come into this game um, for the human experience, and you remember that you're God, you remember that you're a part of the divine, it wouldn't be so much fun, right? So
Exactly.
you have to give up something. And so we come in with amnesia. And part of the game is self discovery, is to remember who you are, come up out of it, and use that greatness to experience the world in a very different way before you die. Okay? That's how the game should be played.
Interesting.
But we come in and no one taught us the rules of the game. So instead of when you're young, you're being taught the psionics, telepathy, how to have the conversation, how to trust your intuition, how to be respectful of the earth, because that is also a being, a living entity that is going to provide for you, right? 80% of your body is water. So 80% of your food should be water. That kind, teaching us all of these things. Instead, we're shuttled into an educational system that, I guess it's by design. There's no church and state, if you will. Um, then we are passed either or before into a religion that tells you that your body is a temple of God, but it takes God out of your temple and then charge you to access God, right? And then, if your body is the temple of God, why are we not digging inside of ourselves looking for God? All of this is a part of the play. If more of us, for me, I graduate at the top of my class from medical school. I consider myself to be an excellent physician. I own my own company. I have served my profession in medicine for over 25 years. I was a surgeon in ear, nose, and throat at the Mayo Clinic. I then transitioned into internal medicine. You know, I actually put a lot of my credibility on the line, saying all of these things that sound so woo woo and so out there, but it is true. It is absolute truth. I will tell you that what we don't know as human, we love to hand it to God, right? We say, God does this, God create that. We throw it into religion and we shame each other for daring to question God, right? And then for those of us who don't want to go into that category, you have this, what we call spirituality. It's meeting in the middle. It's not exactly God, but it's not exactly science. And then outside of spirituality, we have tangible material science, traditional science. Based on my experiences, when I leave my body, when I realize that in my out of body state, I am still myself. I still have a memory. I know what I do on earth. I know where I was the last minute. I move in and out of walls. I realize there's a version of the world that we're living in where I'm at, and I realize it's science. It is science that spirituality has not yet merged with tangible material science to put an explanation to this. It is quantum physics. The body I occupied was made of neutrinos, if you will. It's a finer substance than electron and protons of this world. And when I say that, that is being in form. And when you go formless, in a formless version, you're in a whole different dimension that is made of even smaller things than neutrinos. But all of it, the basic fundamental building block of all things is awareness, i.e., consciousness.
Earlier, you said we're a slave.
Yes.
Who is enslaving us and for what reason?
Yes. So we are enslaving ourselves. So when we came to Earth, right, the whole goal was we're creator. We're creator beings. We're all creators. And we have in our DNA this program to search. The energy that you're searching for is yourself, your soul. That's how the game is designed. So you come in, and through a process of creation, whether you create a family, you create a career, you create something. And in that creation process, you're supposed to discover yourself. Well, when you let's say you create art and you create music, it's not just for you, right? You want to share it. That is the instinct. You want to share it with everybody else. And if you can create music and I can create art, maybe I can take your music and give you art. That's what was happening many, many millions of years ago. And then we institute our civilization, we institute order, and we institute money. And that took the place of all trade passed through money. And that's when we gave up our freedom, because I couldn't just live and enjoy your music and you take my pottery or art or whatever I make or free healthcare or whatever I have to give you. We had to go through this monitored, orderly system. And as a result of that, you can change your DNA. So you still have an innate desire to search for energy. Collectively, we search for energy. as, you know, in terms of love. You create a family. You create, you search for energy in terms of your desire for goods. So you buy things. What you're searching for is you. That energy, your soul, is what you're searching for. And for those of us that came into the game, and people talk about archons, right? And I don't want to get into too deep into finger pointing. But yes, the archons are real, and yes, they have layered on top of our original system a system in which I don't want to say is keeping us asleep, but it has us so trained because we go to college, you go to school, you don't live by your experiences anymore. Everything is all about structure and you regurgitating what you're told and believing what you're told. You have no time to rest. You have no time to meditate. You have no time for self discovery. And as a result, we work, and all of that money goes right back into the system, right? I mean, you think about it. Nothing you have is really yours, and it shouldn't have to be. And we shouldn't have to in our old selves before we became slaves of the system, if you will. You realize you don't have to possess something to love it. You can love it and leave it where it is because it's yours anyway. All of it is you. All of it is a part of that great ocean, that great wave, which is a part of who you are. And, you realize there are no borders. You don't have to, we shouldn't separate ourselves because of nationality, because it's you anyway. We don't, the divine power of the divine force that engulfed me, that I experienced, is not anthropomorphic. It was neither male or female. It wasn't black or white. It had no borders. It was absolute, a signature of love. That's the only vibration. And when you feel that and when you understand that, you you begin to understand who you are, and you see the big picture. But yes, we are actually asleep, and until you self discover and discover that fact that you are a part of that love signature, you're a part of that divine, they will keep us all in this slavery.
What are some practical ways for us to discover who we really are?
The most practical way is to live in the moment. So we've gone into multitasking, bad thing. Not everyone can sit and lay in meditation. I think that there's been so much misinformation about what meditation is and is not. It is laying still. We're human beings, not human doings. We aren't supposed to always be active and doing, right? We're energy, and when we're creating, we're already moving. But there is also a time for being and being still. And when you are still, the whole goal is not to, there's this misinformation about you shouldn't be able to think about anything. And that's not true. When you lay in meditation, for some people, it may take you 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. It does not matter how skilled you are, you will find your mind wandering. That part of you, that energy layer that's outside of the body, that's not a part of the brain. It will go thinking about what you're going to eat tomorrow, what you're going to do later. All you have to do, don't fight with it. Bring it back to center. Every time, whether you're focused on your breath, whether you're focused on something in your mind's eye, You bring that focus right back to center. And after much practice, you'll find that what normally would take you 40 minutes to get that mind control will now be 5 minutes. But it is in that silence, in those moments of being. And not everyone have the capability to like lay out and meditate, but we can all do this in our daily practice by being present where you are in what you're doing. For instance, we're present only in this conversation. And if I were making dinner for my family, as I slice the tomatoes, that's where I would be in that moment, in that slice, in that cucumber, in that motion, because so many things happen that we miss. And when I say so many things happen that we miss, this is how you would lose the fact that you're living in a holographic world, for instance. And let me just kind of back up for a second. How many times have you walk into a room, you put an item down, and you step away and for instance, your keys. You put your key by the door, by the table by the door. You turn around and it's not there, but that's the last place you left it. That's because in the hologram, it did not repopulate. And that's all that is. But if you just like, I learned this from the beings in Sirius, you close your eyes. You can close your eyes and it repopulates, or you step away and come back. And, in quantum physics, you hear them talking about how nothing is tangible, everything is, things are a probability, and it's in a waveform probability, and it only populates when you look at it. And that's what's happening. And that's happened for each and every one of us. And so you will miss the opportunity to identify little things in which the world is not repopulating right for you, but you are so busy. You didn't pause to be in the moment. And when you even catch it, you second guess yourself because someone has taught us that we are crazy. And someone has taught you to bypass that. That's a fluke. Don't think about it. And this is what has kept us in this slavery. So if I were to say practical ways, that is the most practical way to self-discovery and to want to do it. And I find that when you ask yourself, who am I? That proverbial question, I think the universe, which is alive and interactive, is waiting to help guide you. Like every single thing, my lamp, my cup, your pen, your microphone is conscious. The fundamental building block that makes the vehicle that you occupy, the body, also is the fundamental building block of all things. And everything will begin to do this dance to bring you to this awareness of who you are.
Once we do transition, can we leave and go back to Sirius, or are we being forced back here, either by ourselves or the archons?
There's no force. There is no force. Life is a game. And let me tell you, if you and I were playing a game, right? And when you step out, when you pop out of this, there's certain things, certain words we use: universe, university, so school, right? And when you, in your day-to-day experience, every time you meet someone, in my course of my day, I play the role of a physician. When I come home, I play the role of a wife or a mother or a grandmother. We're always role playing in this university. And each encounter has an experience for the soul, has a lesson for the soul that you wanted to experience while you're here. And how it manifests itself, if you get it, you grasp the lesson, it never represents itself. For instance, there are some people who will say, people are so mean, or, I don't know, you pick a label, and somebody will say, um, every time I go to the store, X happens. That's because it's happening for them, not for you and I, but for that person, because there's a lesson in the soul lesson list that this person need to learn, grasp the lesson so they can move on from that challenge and move on from that difficulty, but they never learn it. When you get out and you transition at the time of death, and you look back and you realize, oh my God, it wasn't that serious. It really was a game. I was in it to do. You go, put me back in, put me back in. I can do it better the next time. You choose to come here. We choose to come here. It is challenging. It is different. It is difficult. You're not alone. I think the amnesia of the experience is what gets to us because we don't remember. And how some of us, um, I don't know, remember who we are. I guess a lot of it has to do with how many times you've played the game, right? That's why sometimes you'll hear people use the term, this person is an old soul, right? They've been here before, they've done it before. You're not being forced. It is by choice. We come here by choice.
How do you win the game?
The game is not to win or lose. The game is for you to remember to live in your own, to the best of your internal guide. So your experience and my experience will be absolutely different because we wanted to experience very different things. And you win when, and I use the word win in a very guarded way, but when you live to what that guide is, that intuition that's guiding you, that soul, when you do the things in your daily life that fulfill that that is when you're winning the game. A lot of people talk about, you know, these energies and they use it for manifestation. And if you break that word down, is how you would say man's infestation, right? That's what manifestation really is. We feel like we have to possess things when we love them. That's our infestation. We believe that we get caught in the Arkan's game of owning and buying and hoarding and the feeling of never enough or not being enough because something catastrophic is going to happen when everything that we are, air, water, and fire, that's what make you up, right? Your lungs, your body space, 20% air, 70% water, and the rest is just heat and matter, right? That's who you are. Everything that you need is provided in the earth for free. But when we do discover a little part of our greatness, when we remember where we are and who we are, instead of using that power to guide someone else to their own self discovery, we spend our time talking about how to bring a Rolls Royce into this world, right? As a part of man's infestation of the earth, instead of living day to day, moment to moment, and just loving. I discovered that, Jeff, because whenever I get out of my body and I get to the other side, I never forget who I am. I always know who I am. I remember my family. I get to take all my memories with me, good or bad. And after the very first time, I came back, when I came back to Earth, I played the game very different, right? I was born poor in Jamaica. Actually, I was so loved, I didn't realize that I was poor. My family was one of absolute love. When I was in middle school, I didn't have something and somebody called me poor. That created such a trauma for me that I decided I was never going to be poor again. I worked my ass off. I came to the United States. I went to college. I became a physician. I I think would say I was an exemplary citizen of what success looked like. I bought many homes. I live in, something that was 8,000 square feet. I was the girl who had Birkin in every color and Chanel in every color and, you name it. Um, and when I get back from Sirius that first time, and I realize from the lessons of those beings and from my own experience that this was a hologram, and I wasn't here to hoard. I wasn't here to own the most beautiful things because they were mine anyway. My time was to love and to guide and to create experiences, beautiful ones, memorable ones, because that's what I got to take with me. I didn't get to take my Van Cleef necklace that I love so much. I have never crossed the veil with anything. As a matter of fact, like I told you, that first time I was sleeping naked. And it doesn't matter what I'm meditating in, when I get out of body, I'm always provided for. I find myself clothed, right? And, but I always remember the experiences I have here, how I make people feel. And that reminds me of when your viewers talk about their near death experiences and they're shown these screen of parts of their lives as to how they make others feel. And that's exactly what it is about. That was my experience without being dead. That was, my lesson without having to have a life review to go, hold on a minute. In my case, it was teaching me, listen, we didn't send you to Earth to go buy Louis Vuitton and Chanel. You're there to be a doctor and to love people and to teach. And so, yes, I change the way I live for that reason. And yeah.
How often are you having communication with the Sirians? And while we're on the subject, can you share with us some of the other things that they taught you?
Yes. So I have communications very often. They're sporadic. I feel their presence all the time. And that is one thing to remember, that we are in a dimension and we're not alone. In this game and in this university, you are not alone. You have guides. And these guides, we look at them and we go, oh my God, they're aliens, they're whatever. You're the alien too. I mean, you're not from Earth. So why are you calling somebody else, an alien? And we use the term extraterrestrial. And if we're going to be technical, extraterrestrial mean other terrestrial people. Doesn't that mean that? Mean they're already here. They've always been here because they're your game coach, your game leader. And when you fall off track, if you're in a university, you have a counselor, you have a guide, you have somebody you can go to when your coursework get too hard. That's the role they're playing. And because they're in a different vehicle than us, does not make them any different. And so to answer your question, um, I I I end up writing a book, and the book is not out yet. And the book is about a lot of these experiences, and it's called When Orchids Speak. That's the name of the book, The True Nature of Reality. I think it will come out sometime the end of August or September or so this year. And I did that because patients encouraged me to. I tell the story so many times. They're like, you got to write a book, write it down. And in the process, the beings coach me a lot in here is a message, here is what I want people on earth to remember. Find yourself, remember who you are, and that you're not alone. This experience that we're having here on earth is but a minute, right? It seems like years, but you've been immersed in this game for a very short time, and that too will come to an end. And when I came back and I started explaining to family and friends and patients and anyone who would listen that the world is actually holographic, and I'm trying to explain to find words to explain to human understanding and human ears something that has no word in this dimension, right? If I went to the bottom of an ocean and I tell a fish that I live on land and I breathe air and water, the fish would say, get out of here. But because we've been trapped in this vehicle, this body, all our lives, we don't know how to receive the information that I am bringing. So they were very instrumental in guiding me. But even as I sound crazy saying some of these things, and even to my family, I remember telling the beings, listen, I need tangible. I need something tangible because I'm telling people this information that you've shared with me, and they're looking at me like I've lost it. So, two things happen. One, I had an experience where my body erupted in light, and I can send you a video of this. um, because they were trying to teach me about the soul being in this vehicle and that we were electromagnetic and the body had bioluminescence and so on. And so one night, they said, well, go to bed, come back at 3 o'clock, I'll show you something. I went out on my patio and I'm walking around and I'm waiting, I feel nothing. And I'm clairaudient and clear sentient and I can feel nothing. As soon as I step back inside, I get this telepathic delivery. Look at your security camera. And my first instinct was, why would I do that? And then I remember I'm not in charge. It took me a while. I have to figure out how to get into the security camera because most of these things, we only use them if we have a catastrophe, right? So with my husband's help, I figure out how to get in there. And what you'll see on this video is my body, all my chakra bursting in light as the light ascend into this erupt light. So that was one thing that I could show to someone. The first time I showed it to my husband, he said, it looked like lightning strike you. And I said, and the lightning strike me 7 times and I'm still standing? That makes no sense. So that's one. The other thing that I think was tangible as the book is coming out, I took my one night, this was actually pretty recent. So this is an ongoing communication, ongoing story. And I remember talking to these beings and I'm like, listen, I feel like sometimes I'm being abducted, if you will, without my permission. I agreed to write this book. I agreed to help humanity get to the next level of understanding who we are and change the experience we're having here as humans. But you got to show yourself. Like, you got to show yourself. I look up in the sky sometimes and I know stars don't blink, but you'll see these orbs, they shoot across the sky and they would turn on. So I said to them, I know you're there. I know you're here in this dimension. You got to show yourself. And so on June 9th, my grandkids are out of school and they wanted to have dinner. So I decided to take them to a restaurant. On our way back, my daughter is in the car behind me. is in my car, but in the passenger seat behind me. My grandson is in the car in the front passenger seat. He's 13. My granddaughter, who's 7, is behind him. And as I'm approaching, I probably was about a mile away from home. My street is dark. I see something from the corner of my eyes. And my brain said, as I'm driving, what is that? I drive another 20 feet, and this is when time slows down. So you can hear your thoughts, you can see your action. It's like time disappear. And I'm turning my head, and as I'm turning my head to the left, I came face to face with a 80-foot by 10-foot high triangular UFO that was probably about 20 feet off the ground. It's almost as if it just materialized in the darkness. And I remember just thinking, oh my God, it's you. That was my original instinct. My original feeling was, oh, I know who you are. You're the beings. And my family started screaming in the car. They're like, drive, drive. So I turned to my granddaughter and I said, why are you yelling? It's just the aliens. And she said, aliens aren't real, Grandma. And I said, I don't know what to tell you. There they go in that craft over there. So they actually will show up, they communicate. It's an ongoing process. There's so much that is about to happen for humanity, that they are involved, they will be involved, and in the next couple of years, they'll be even more involved with us.
We've gone into overtime, and I don't like to make these videos too long because they're difficult
Yes.
to edit. But maybe you would be willing to come back because I think we have so much more to talk about.
Yes.
And even maybe when you come back, we can go over your videos together. Are they like posted
Yes.
somewhere on YouTube?
I have not. Like I said, this is such a private and personal discovery of my own self that I wanted to share my journey of self-discovery with others so that it could be a motivation to someone else to dive into their own discovery. Ask, who am I? And start the process of meditation and listening to the universe. So, yes, I'd be happy to come back and share some of those with you. Yes.
All right, great. Well, after watching this video, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that? And if so, how do they
Yes.
contact you?
Yes. They can contact me via my email at info, that's info at thelisteningdoctor.com. Or they can go to my work website, which is www.thelisteningdoctor.com, and use the contact form there to reach out to me.
Before we wrap it up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
Yes. You're God. You're part of that divine power. Everything in this world is you. Everything that you ever want is out there waiting for you. It's a world of possibilities. Make it positive. Make it positive.
Marlene, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jeff.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.